Alright guys, today I want to talk about the best compact iPhones that you can buy. And these are some of the best small phones as well. They don't make a ton of small phones, and I did go ahead and buy the Zenfone 8 that you guys were leaving the comments about. That should be on the channel this week. So as you guys know, I've been paying attention to a lot of compact smartphones like these iPhones, the S10e, and yeah, I just think there's a big market for small phones, at least from the people that kind of watch my videos. They always ask me about smaller phones. So I want to break down the most relevant smaller iPhones, which would be the iPhone 12, the iPhone SE, and the iPhone 8. So they have major and slight differences that I want to go over. So hopefully this will help you with your buying decision. Now obviously we have to talk about the price first, because I think that's probably one of the most important things. The iPhone 12 mini is going to be your most expensive phone here, ranging at around $600, and I have all those links down below. To me, it's going to have the best hardware, the best looking hardware, the most up-to-date looking hardware. I overall think it's a great design compared to the SE 2020 and the iPhone 8. As you can see, you can barely tell the difference between the iPhone SE and the iPhone 8. As you can see, the logo is down here, the logo is up here on the 8. That's basically the difference. There's no other difference in terms of hardware on these phones. Same button layout, same Touch ID, same screen size. All of that is exactly the same on these two devices, and that's where these two devices are probably the most interesting out of the bunch, because they're just super similar. Now the first thing that is going to stand out, at least with the iPhone 12 mini, is the display. So on the iPhone 12 mini, you actually have a 5.4 inch display. It's actually the biggest display, but as you can see, what's interesting is it keeps the same size, or the SE and 8 are actually bigger than the iPhone 12 mini in terms of like just tallness, and it looks the 8 and the SE look thinner or about the same thickness, but it's definitely taller, so it is definitely a bigger device. So with the 12 mini, the display on the 12 mini is much better looking than the IPS panels here. So if you're somebody that watches a ton of video and stuff on your phone, you do have that 5.4 and 1080p display, 476 for the PPI, and that is a Super Retina XDR OLED display, and it's HDR10 as well. It gets fairly bright. Colors are absolutely beautiful on the 12 mini. But there is one thing. You do have this big notch that houses the Face ID, which you may or may not care about. So that is one thing to consider. But as you can see, it does have a more bezel-less experience compared to the other two here. You have sort of bigger bezels on the 8 and SE here, and you have that more up-to-date screen to body ratio. So when you're looking at the SE or the 8, they have the same display, but the display technology is definitely different, and you can definitely tell the difference. So this one has actually a smaller display at 4.7 inches. So this is even easier to one hand. If you have smaller hands, this is easier to reach the whole phone, just with your thumb like that. So this has a IPS display, so colors, they're not as accurate, or the blacks aren't as deep as on this IPS display, and it's 720p as opposed to 1080p panel on the 12 mini, and the PPI is slightly lower at 326. Now with all that being said, it is actually still a very good display, so I can't really knock these displays since the screen is so small. It's still a good display. Like I said, you will notice the difference in color, obviously, and you'll just notice the difference in screen to body ratio. But overall, it's still a decent display, I think, for people who like smaller phones. I don't think anybody will look at this display and have a major issue with it. I think it still looks fairly solid here. And also there is one other thing too, the gestures versus using the button. That could be something that you may like or may not like. With the gestures, you get sort of a more to me, a smoother experience. I wouldn't say necessarily it feels faster, but definitely smoother. Some people like that classic, being able to hit a button to go back. That is also something that, is up to the person. Also, the whole Touch ID versus the Face ID. Me personally, I think Apple should definitely put Touch ID back in their phones and get rid of this notch. I don't necessarily think we really need Face ID. I think Touch ID works fine if you put it in the power button. So I've been preaching that for a while now on this channel, and I think it takes care of the notch situation. And plus, with Face ID, even though it does feel quicker and more fluid, the thing is that when you have the mask on, you kind of have to take it off. So Touch ID is technically faster, but again, it all comes down to personal preference. Now, all of these phones are running iOS 14, and like I said, you got 600. The SE is a $350 phone, and then the 8 is around a $200 phone, if not cheaper, on eBay. So the prices are sort of all over the place. So you kind of have a mid-range price, a premium flagship price, and then you have a budget smartphone price. What I've noticed with performance is with the 8, especially with the versus the SE 2020, performance is, even though the benchmark scores you see like a way higher number, to me day-to-day performance on the 8 is still extremely solid. I feel like performance won't really age until we get to more versions of iOS, and then you'll start to see this chipset age. But as you can see from the Antutu benchmark scores, as you can see, the 12 mini is obviously going to be the faster device, but I was really more interested in how the SE performs against the 8, having that older chipset. So with the iPhone 12 mini, we have the Apple A14 chip, and then with the iPhone 8 over here, we do have the Apple A11 chip, but with the SE, we also have the Apple A13 chip. So the SE 2020 is honestly just as fast as the iPhone 12 mini. So if you wanted to just save money and you're a performance person, or you wanted to game, and I'll go ahead and pull PUBG up to show you those graphic settings. If you really wanted to game, PUBG is going to run the exact same as it is on the in all of your games. Really, is going to run the exact same. The iPhone 8 is where it plays games fine, but you're not going to have those settings like you are on the 12 and SE. So I'll show you what I mean. So as you can see on the SE, you can see my graphic settings. I can go all the way up. I have extreme FPS up to HDR, and it's the same thing on the 12 mini here. Let me pull that up. As you can see, extreme FPS. And let me get into this backed out. But on the 8, you'll see a different setting here. Now if you pull the 8 up, you can see we don't get the same graphic settings. So as you can see, smooth, extreme, but we get ultra frame rates. And as you can see on balance here, we get extreme up all the way up. So you are missing those like smoother frame rates, but to me the iPhone 8 still plays really well for the price point. So that's one thing that I've never knocked it, because it does an excellent job with just playing games and stuff like that. I've always been very impressed. So I do want to touch on just overall speed and show you the speed of getting into applications, and show you how there's not a massive difference with that. So I'll just compare it to the 12 so you can get a good general idea how speed is going to work compared to the Apple's latest. So we'll do the SE first here, and you can see they're going to be basically tied when it comes to performance here. 12 mini, SE. So it's like a barely, you see that was a tie. Oh, the SE actually got that, surprisingly. Let's try game. Boom, we're in. And then the SE is right behind it. So as you can see, not a massive difference. Now, to me, I think the iPhone 8 still does a great job, because to me, I'm not seeing a huge difference like that. So watch this. Boom. Slightly behind. But on the 8, it still feels fast. As you can see, boom. Okay, that was actually kind of a noticeable difference. I'm not even gonna lie there. That was kind of a noticeable difference. See, boom. Let's try a game. Now game, when you open a game, that is where you'll notice kind of like a bigger difference, because you'll see how fast the 12 mini gets in there compared to the 8. Yeah, you can see like I'm already playing. Yeah, so when you open games, that's where you'll notice that difference. I think day-to-day applications, you won't notice a massive difference. So if you're not a gamer, I don't think you're really missing out too much. All right, so I do want to touch on cameras. If you're buying, you know, an iPhone and you want a small iPhone, but your main focus is cameras, I would suggest spending the money and getting the iPhone 12 mini, because it does take pretty much flagship quality photos still. The images are just excellent on here, and I'm also always impressed with the video. You do have an ultra wide as opposed to having no ultra wide on these two. Color accuracy is great. It handles overexposure really well, and like I said, video is awesome on here. Selfies look great. I think the iPhone 12 mini camera is just an excellent camera. So you know, whatever situation you're shooting in, it does a fairly good job. It's up there with the best of the best images. What about the iPhone 8? I said this and I'm still sticking by it. I don't think there's a huge difference between the image quality of the iPhone 8 and the iPhone SE for a casual shooter. What does a casual shooter mean? Somebody that points and clicks and says, hey, did I get a good photo? Is there detail? Does everything look solid for a selfie camera or just whatever? It handles all of those. So the iPhone 8, surprisingly, I think still does an excellent job. It could do better with overexposure, which I think the SE 2020 handles a little bit better. Video, but I'm saying, like, honestly, I'm just not seeing like the massive difference for a casual shooter. So for somebody that's more technical, right, you know, with their picture taking on the SE, they would, you know, pick out these little things and be like, okay, the SE does image processing better, blah, blah, blah. But I'm telling you, for somebody that's a casual shooter, you know, if you pick up the SE versus the iPhone 8, I don't think you're gonna notice a massive difference. So if you're somebody that does not care about cameras, you know, you can easily still go with the iPhone 8 and get a great shot, because you don't have an ultra wide on either of these, so they're almost like the same camera setup to me, and they take pretty much kind of the same photo to me, honestly. And I do want to touch on battery life as well. For battery life, I think compact phones in general, they are kind of subpar in battery life. So and that's with even the Android ones. So you're probably looking at around 5 to 6 hours of screen on time with the 12 mini. That's usually what everyone gets. With these two, you're looking at around 4 hours and maybe 4 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time, depending on how hard you use it. So not great battery life, but if you want the most battery life, obviously you would go with the 12 mini. But yeah, so that is pretty much it. That's pretty much sums up I think everything you need to know here. If you want obviously the best of the best, you would go with the 12 mini for, you know, a compact phone. But I would say if you are not a gamer, the iPhone 8 is totally, you know, sufficient for you still. You can save, you know, a lot of money just going with, you know, an older flagship. It's still going to get updates. Not as many updates as the SE 2020, but it's still going to get iOS 15, if not 16. And I think for $150 it's solid. If you are a gamer but you don't want to shell out $300, get the SE 2020. You're going to get the same experience as you would on a 12 mini. Alright, so that is pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.